Hello again. Welcome to this week's episode of the Desktop Developer Show. I'm Walt Ritzer, and I'm joined this week, as every week, by my host, Billy Hollis. Hi, Billy. How are you?
Doing fine.
So, who's our guest today, Billy?
Our guest is a fellow I met a little over 4 years ago, I think, named Nate Bahl. Nate and I met at a conference where was that? Philadelphia, I think.
Yep,
And
Philadelphia.
and then we got involved in their project to modernize their applications. He runs software development there, team of a pretty good sized team doing multi-platform development, doing all kinds of stuff. He's guided the company through a whole generation of new applications, which includes desktop as well as tablet, mobile, and web. So he's really very familiar with a lot of the decision making around modern applications. And I thought this would be a great chance to get somebody on who is a little bit more in the trenches, because we have a lot of our guests. Some of them are. Renee that we had last week actually is in there developing things, but a lot of the folks that are well known in the software community, they actually don't do that much work in the trenches anymore. And I think there are some lessons to be gained from people like that. So welcome, Nate. Glad you could join us.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. It's nice to be here. So, Billy said. Oh, go ahead, Billy.
I was just going to say, yeah, give us the quick overview of the company and the product ranges, just to set the stage for our later questions.
Sure. So we're based out of Bird Island, Minnesota. We have about 15 developers in our company right now. And like Billy said, we have our back office desktop application, which is the main product that we support. And then we also have a mobile application, which is written in WPF, running on Windows Surface Pro tablets inside of Propane trucks. And then we also offer a web hub experience, which allows customers to pay balance, view their account, anything customer related. And then we're also using Xamarin to create mobile apps for the company, so they can view their company information, customers, and then also we're working on a customer app that for each propane company that they could offer to their customers. So we have a lot going on, a lot of different platforms, and we definitely have a great team, but we work well with Billy, and through training and stuff like that with Billy, it's gotten us along pretty good.
And just to emphasize those apps that you're talking about, the web particularly, and I think the mobile app as well, it's not just a typical sort of app, because it has to look like it comes from your clients. You've got how many customers, clients do you have now? Like 1,500, I think.
We have 1,500 with our back office. Probably 400 to 500 that use our web also. And like you said, it's a custom look for the company, so it fits into their website. Some of them host. We have one web application for all of our companies, and each company has a look and feel. Some of them host it within their own website, so it's got to fit their look of their website. But a lot of them just link from their website. So we try to keep somewhat of a color scheme, look and feel to match their live website.
And so I think that gives a good idea of the whole range that you've really looked at both. I could bring up maybe a screenshot of your basic fuel app, the back office app you were talking about, because I show that in my own sessions quite often. Here we go. Let's make that big enough so you can see it pretty good. So do you want to comment on this? Or of course I'm used to commenting on it because I do it in presentations all the time. But this is kind of what we call the customer hub.
Yep, it is, and that's the main focus of our new version 10 that we call it. We started working with Billy back in 2016, and they helped us with the design. We went through weeks of design work and working with his team, and our developers and our management team kind of came up with what you see there. A lot of stuff that Billy preaches about in his design classes. We've kind of always kept that in our mind when we look at a screen or design something about having the data visualization and how to so presenting data to the customer, not just in a grid view or we got timelines, we've got the tank there, we've got different things different ways to show data.
I particularly like the thing along the bottom, because the original version of this did have kind of a grid representation of interactions with the customer. And instead of that was replaced, and I think with a vast improvement, with a card view of interactions with the customer. And notice those backgrounds, because you can have different kinds of interactions with customers. They can do payments, there can be deliveries, there can be service. And so in my classes, I will pose the question of which one of those interactions along the bottom do you think is a service call? And of course, everybody gets it right away. It's the first one, because it's got that wrench in the background. So yeah, data visualization, I think. Now I was here by random chance when they rolled this app out to customers. They did it at the Nashville Convention Center, which is about 10 minutes north of my house. So I drove up there to watch them. I didn't say much, but and Nate, that audience looked like they were kind of blown away when you showed this to them for the first time. Most of them had never seen it before. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, and even to today, they're still blown away of what they see. Our current customers, we have a large customer base, so they're on multiple versions, but they see this new version, they can't wait to get on it. But we're kind of taking a slower approach to bringing people up to the version. But in even potential customers, I mean, they've commented just this past week, I've heard that we're by far and away the best looking application in our in the propane industry. So we've kind of we've made the jump, and it's worked out well.
Well, now let me dive down. Walt, I know you got something there, but I got something that's so on target. I got to get it out. And when I UX design and redevelopment to modern apps, the common thing I get from developers in the audience is, well, people like their old apps. They don't want to move to something new. Okay. Do you see that, Nate? And if not, why not?
We still struggle. When you have something that they could just use their keyboard and the number pad and just hammer away, when you take that away from them, they kind of they get a little upset. But part of our design is how can not replicate it, but how can we design something that is just as fast, still using the keyboard, not a big thing from our upper management. They threaten to take the mouse away. They want us to develop without a mouse, so then we have to when we design something or create something, we have to not use the mouse, and because most of our end users, they just like to sit on the keyboard and quick entry. So we've done quick entry screens. We've done, a full entry screen, which, more mouse driven, but still you can get through the whole thing without using your mouse too. So, yeah, we definitely hear, well, in the old one, I could do this, and so a little bit of training, but then they look at it and be like, but it looks so much better, and so looks better. All of everything I want to see is in one spot. I don't have to jump around. So there is a big upgrade moving over to the new version.
Nice. So this is written, we're looking at the client app here. That's correct. And you have a mobile app too. And is there anything on the web?
We do. We do have we've had a web presence since early 2000s with ASP. And the current version out there now is with MVC, but we're rewriting that using Angular. And that, it's a new framework for us, but we have a developer there working on it, and he's picked up on it. Again, we actually worked with Billy and his team on that too, and they've kind of helped us get going, and we've taken it over, and it's coming along pretty quick, and looks really good. And same type of thing where we have to, keep it looking good, but somewhat it's got to fit all these different websites because they're either iframes or they're linked from different websites, so we have to keep it somewhat
right.
schemes and being able to customize and stuff. Yeah.
But and you have so this application, the desktop application we're looking at, that's written in WPF. Is that correct? And your mobile's in Xamarin.
Yep. Yep. We have the mobile apps in Xamarin, and then we have a mobile, and we call it MOGO. It's a mobile office on the go. So this is the app that would be in your propane truck when they're out delivering propane, and that is also written in WPF. We started that about 2014 on our own, and it's working great. I mean, we looked back then at different options, but we decided on WPF with the touchscreen using Surface Pros, ruggedized case on them, and then it's a full Windows PC basically, so we can have PDFs, everything that the driver might need, and then also we still have to connect to devices inside the truck. So having the USB port and printers and all that type of connection stuff, it has worked out well. And we've learned stuff with WPF going through that, with the touch and screen size and limitations there with the tablet screen, but it's worked well. We're again, that one we'll probably look at doing a new version of that. We actually have a new version that matches version 10, but we're always updating it and adding new features and stuff like that.
That app was in pretty decent shape when we came there. I got to ride in the truck and watch a guy use it. Go out and deliver some propane.
So you got to deliver some propane, is what you're saying?
Yeah, he went out and hooked up the hose to the tank, and of course some of the stuff Nate's talking about is there are meters that have to funnel information into the app. So yeah, it was a pretty fascinating process, and it certainly made the drivers' lives so much easier, because now they get back in the truck and they enter everything, and the app goes, okay, well, here's the next person you need to go to.
Yeah.
And they're off and ready to go. So now that was a pretty good app. I think we probably found some ways to improve it, but in general, it was pretty good already.
Yeah, we made some, after you looked at it and played with it, we made some changes to it. Nothing major, but, it just kind of a look and color, some of the stuff we took from our new version 10 that you guys helped us with. We brought that over to the Mogos or to the tablet, so it all kind of looks the same. With the tablet too, it's all real time, but a lot of times the truck is behind a grain bin or they're out in the mountains and they don't have data, signal. So we store all of it local and then push it up to the web when we do have a connection. So it's real time. In the back office, you can watch where your driver is and get real time information back from the truck. How much propane he has left, how many deliveries he has left to do for the day, and the dispatcher can make decisions whether he should give them more deliveries or do stuff like that. So there's a lot of communicating between the two softwares right now, and again, that's all everything is done in WPF and web services.
And that's the classic case where everything is so much simpler with a native client type of application, because you can do the local storage, you can use device drivers and talk to the local devices, no matter what they are. So yeah, I certainly feel like it's a great example of why you would want these technologies, native technologies, instead of the web.
Right. Yeah.
Now, but I mean, talk a little bit about sort of the process of learning WPF, because when I came up there, you had an app, but you really weren't that satisfied with it in terms of, it wasn't a really big advance over like the Windows Forms type stuff you had before. What was it like to kind of try to adapt to WPF, which is a very advanced technology?
Well, like I said, we probably started WPF back in 2009, and the stuff that we kind of did on our own, learned on our own. We did online training and stuff like that, but a lot of it, we relied a lot on third-party controls, different things that kind of made our life easier. But in the long run, there's a lot of overhead there. So like when we started working with Billy, we started writing our own controls, and it took a little bit more time up front and more work, but in the end, we don't have all of the extra overhead of the other controls. We still use a couple of them. We didn't want to reinvent the whole calendar view type of thing, but that having our own controls, being in control of that, and just learning a lot of the XAML stuff that Billy has taught us, and applying it to the new version has made it pretty responsive. We try to, we look a lot at how responsive it is, especially with large amounts of data, 100,000 customers in a database, that type of stuff, just how searches go. We have like a customer drill down control that we created. Well, when you click on it to look up a customer, you don't need to pull all 100,000 because nobody's going to scroll through them. So, just back in the day, we would have done that. We would have tried to. And you have to search for it. You have to search for something. And so a lot of stuff like that we just are very mindful of and have to remember to, take care of.
I think WPF teams in general don't take advantage of the advanced technologies like controls and such. It's like they're kind of scared to even sort of go in that direction. Once you kind of learn it and get over it. And actually, this is an interesting thing. When we first started WPF development, my partner, Gary Bailey, who has worked with you guys, was kind of, can't we just do user controls? I go, well, yeah, for some things, but controls will actually give you some more flexibility beyond that. And of course, when he kind of got over that hump and understood what it would do, then he became more of an advocate. But it does take some time to realize how to do it and to understand the techniques to make the controls really beneficial. For example, that fuel tank control, which I wrote the original version, and then David Garcia really put that wonderful polish on it, is a true WPF control, a true XAML control, in the terms that it's resizing stuff all the time, and it acts like a shape or something in the XAML world if you plug it into UI. So creating controls like that and learning the techniques that make that sort of stuff work, it does take some time, but once you learn it, creating controls is not hard and doesn't take a huge amount of time.
And I would say another learning curve, Nate, if you had this, is understanding the whole templating system in WPF, because that certainly changes the way you think about it. You don't have to do a user control a lot of times because you can just template it, let's say a list.
Yep. Yeah, we do a lot of that. We share, we have a template and then we'll share it between multiple screens. It's very powerful tool. And stuff that, obviously when we first started, we weren't doing that. We were, having templates on every, not even templates. It was just coded into every XAML screen to do it. And, looking back, like, yeah, we should have just had a template and shared that, use that same template. But then, that those templates also allow us, like when Billy was showing that screenshot, that bottom part, you can hit a button and you can have a completely different view of that customer's transactions as a timeline instead of, the index card type of thing. So, having the templates just to change the look of data is pretty neat. And we use that quite a bit and show data in different ways, ways that we've never would have thought before. And that's one of the things with our design sessions is trying to think outside the box. When we first started, like Billy says, we were throwing, lipstick on a pig. It was, it was colorful, but it really wasn't changing anything.
So you were taking it like you were basically taking a WinForm approach and doing the same thing in WPF.
Exactly. Yep. So we until we went through design sessions and training and just learning more about it. That's exactly what we were doing. It looked great, but it was just really just a WinForms with some color.
Well, I mean, there were some attempts. They were actually trying. They were working on some things. Because I remember one incident when they were showing that version of the application when I was first there, and there were like, I don't know, 8 or 10 of you around the conference table, including all the principals of the company and the development staff. And they showed a screen that did a page flipping animation, a page turning animation. You've seen those, and there were samples on the web for that sort of thing. And that sort of thing, you could do that in WinForms. So they had one of those. Unfortunately, while that's cute, it's not very useful. It's the sort of thing that annoys people. So when I saw that, I walked up to the screen and pointed it and said, "Don't do that." And everybody in the room laughed, except for the president of the company, because it was his idea.
Ooh.
But it's okay. No, actually, you might talk a little bit about Brian, the president of your company, because he's I think he's very supportive of software development in a way that a lot of executives are not.
Yeah, he actually when the company first started, he was actually one of the developers. They started the company back in '79, and so he's got that developer background. So he's always been in our meetings. He's always been part of the design team, part of anytime we have here's a new function we want to do, or here's a new application, whether it's mobile app or web or whatever, he's always been part of that design. And that's our upper management, all of them have been involved, and they're involved every step of the way, very supportive. They definitely, we can go to them saying, I met Billy Hollis, and I think we could do great things with them, and they were very open to it. So they've been very, very supportive of development, and they, anything we need, they, work with us on and help us get to that point. And yeah, so and Brian, they're obviously very busy, but anytime we have a design and Billy's coming to town, they put aside everything else and help us out. So
and the whole management team, they're really fun to work with. And I mean, Brian, for example, I think all the management teams like this. If they've got a point of view, they'll make sure they express it, but they don't just get so attached to it that they won't listen to alternatives or listen to what's a bad idea. And they're really good about asking questions until they do understand something, which was extremely important when you talk about trying to break loose from the past. Because I think one of the handicaps in a lot of teams that are doing advanced development on the desktop is that they set their idea about what things look like about 1995, and breaking them loose from that is hard. So these people it took a while for the adjustment, and they keep asking questions, but why do you do it this way, and how could you do that, and why are you recommending this? But eventually they get the answers that they need, and they did break their thinking loose from the past. And now, I mean, they're just, some of them could lead design themselves. I think that they now understand enough about what technology will do and about the process of coming up with ideas that it's been gratifying to see that evolution over the last 4 years.
Yeah, and with WPF, kind of what Billy was saying, 4 years ago, I mean, we were still like, just put a text box here and text box there, throw some labels on there, and we're good. But now it's, getting outside that box, saying, it was more of a question, well, can we do this? And I think Billy, with XAML, we can do anything, so we've kind of we've gone that route. We can, kind of do anything we want. Sometimes we say, no, we're not going to do it because it's not worth the manpower and the time to do it. But, we do a lot of neat things with XAML that, I don't know if I'd even want to try to do with, on the web or other technologies. So it's been a very good tool to use.
And that, to me, that's one of the things that contaminates the entire discussion about doing business applications with web platforms versus desktop platforms, is that the web platform guys, the advocates there, are coming from the point of view of, well, they still think about it in terms of, let's put text boxes and combo boxes and labels on there. And if that's all you're going to do, well, okay, fine. You might as well do it in Angular or something. But they have not seen, and part of the problem is they haven't seen enough good examples, and I have to fault Microsoft here. They haven't provided as many examples as they should of what these technologies are able to do. So, we I think set some examples, and then there are some other companies that we draw ideas from that set some others. But the supply of people generating good ideas to try to use this technology is pretty limited. Now, on the other hand, that gives you the opportunity, because as Nate was saying, you look a lot better than any of your competition now, and you act a lot better. The interaction is better. Have you seen any impact on things like tech support for the new version versus the old? Do people, or training or whatever, do people pick it up faster?
I think so. There is an adjustment period, but a lot of it is questions like, well, a lot of it, we've done over 30 years in the previous application. There's a lot of stuff there that we don't even know if it's used anymore. And with 1,500 companies, and they all run different, you don't know exactly what every single company is using. So sometimes, a company will come up and they'll start using a new version, and whatever that they had on, and you don't even realize, you didn't even know anybody was using that. Well, then, obviously that triggers a call. And we have to quickly program that piece back in and, get a release out for them. So that's probably the biggest thing. And that's kind of why we're taking a slower approach to moving everybody over to the new version. That way we don't get bombarded with all these requests of, well, we do this one thing, sometimes it's just like, well, yeah, but we have a better way of doing it now. And they're a lot of times they're happy with that. It does work out better. So
yeah, in general, I feel like the adaptability of users to new software is a lot better than most developers seem to think, because people will complain about taking things away that they want, or doing things differently. They will definitely complain about that. The better you do, the more compelling your experience is, the less they will complain. But they will complain some, and they will adapt some. Some developers just seem to be so gun shy that they're not willing to even really try anything new. It's just like they take old stuff and they fiddle around the edges. Walt, that's where you get a lot of those Windows Forms designs that are implemented in XAML, is because the developers are kind of afraid to try anything really innovative. But
yeah, I think something Nate said earlier is like, early on, you started with basically WinForm type functionality in WPF, but then as you started iterating and learning that there was a lot better or different ways of presenting the data, it empowered your team to start thinking outside the box. And so now, what is it, 4 or 5 years later, I'm guessing that your team thinks more about it, or is more free to think, well, let's not do it that way, the way we used to. How can we, if we're building some new screen, how do we make it different or better or more usable for the user?
Right. Yeah, we talk about that all the time. We're kind of in the process of an area which is kind of one of the biggest and most important pieces of our application is our dispatch manager. And so we're doing things in there that, if we were to do it in WinForms or any other type, you can maybe do it on the web, but I wouldn't want to try it. But we talk all the time, like, how can, what can we do different to to make it better? So using the Bing map control in WPF has allowed us, it's responsive. We can draw route lines. We can do all of the, lasso. You have all these types of tools on there, and so it's really just talking, getting feedback from people that kind of test out the beta version of it, and get feedback from them, and get where they struggle maybe, or what they really like, and then moving from there, adding new features into that. It's definitely, we try to push them to, well, how can we design this better? How can we make it look better, make it more functional, that type of stuff.
Now, when we were first looking at some of that mapping dispatch stuff, we looked at some of the Azure functions, and they weren't quite ready yet. Did they ever get ready? Did you ever move to that as your routing, or are you still using the existing routing engine?
No, we're using we're using Bing Maps, but we're using a different party for doing the actual routing. Bing wasn't there for the routing yet for what we needed. They are working on it, but we kind of needed something now. So, but we do use the Bing Maps, and the map control, which has worked really good. And we've it's pretty cool to see, when we push the limit of 10,000 locations on a map, and you try to pick and choose which locations you want to put on your route, and it's all, you know, pretty fun to play with, actually. So
yeah, and it hasn't been just drop dead easy. I mean, you start throwing enough stuff at the interface, yeah, you get a little bit of responsive issues, but there are ways you can kind of design around that and fix that. And
yeah.
so yeah, I think it's a good experience for the users.
I have there's a question in the stream, and I know the gentleman that's asking this question is an avid web developer, and his question is, how do you choose? You said you're using Angular, is that right?
Yeah, we are starting to now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're doing your website, his question is, how do you choose when to upgrade to newer versions of frameworks with things like Angular being on such aggressive upgrade schedule, or upgrading an existing app installation?
We're not live yet, so we really haven't hit that. But Web Hub, we host it, one version of it. So we're in control of it, and that one version applies to all of our customers. So like I said, that one version has to work for, you know, be customizable, so it can have a different look for each company. So, you know, we're in control of it. We control when we publish, when we upgrade things, when we put out new versions. Obviously, we go through testing, and then, you know, once it's ready for production, we release it. And then at that time, all of the companies that are on that version get it, or that are on the web get it. So
there's another a companion question to that is since the main part of your application is the desktop application, do you have the same issues when Microsoft comes up with a new version of .NET or WPF? How does that impact you?
We haven't. I mean, we do enough builds and releases, and actually we still have people that are running versions that are, you know, 3-4 years old, and they don't have problems. You know, we when Windows put an update out there, our tech team might have to get on the server, and, you know, like printer drivers, for whatever reason, Windows Update seems to change drivers and cause problems printing, that type of stuff. But as far as the application itself, they might, you know, they might have to install some type of driver. But other than that, you know, with the framework, we update the framework on every new install. So when we put a new major release out, we make sure, you know, it's on framework 4.5 or 4.7 or whatever, on the workstations and on the server.
Nice.
Well, we haven't really talked about this, but what's you guys' philosophy about .Net Core, .Net 5? I mean, is that something on your radar screen yet, or is that kind of cross that bridge when you?
No, we have. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, but we haven't made any decision to move to it or do anything in it. You know, like I said, we're kind of in the middle of a major rewrite, and, you know, we don't want to throw more onto it. So it's kind of, you know, once we get through this rewrite, like I said, we typically rewrite our front end of our application every 10 years just to try to stay modern. You know, so, you know, 5 years from now, when we look at starting a new version, you know, who knows what will be available at that time, but, you know, we'll probably decide then how to change things.
When UI version 6 or something, who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I have a question that's really not to do with the UI or the app, but you're in Bird Island? Is that what it's
Yes.
a small town, I understand, yes?
Yeah, 1,100 people.
So, and you have a development shop in Bird Island?
We do. We have, I think, 13 of our 15 developers are in the area, we should say. I mean, some of them drive, you know, 50 miles to come into the office or more. So we pull from the region, which it has worked out well, but definitely you know, there's not a big pool of developers that we can pick from. So
that was where my question was going is how do you find quality developers? Have you looked at remote work or work from home or any of that for your employees?
We do have a couple developers that do work remotely from home, but our office, we kind of all, with our management, upper management, it's a whole family. And so we do, a lot of people do like that office feel. Even, some of them come in, 3 days a week or something. But even with what's going on now, some are like, man, I can't wait to get back in the office just to be around people. But we've been fortunate to find developers in the area, and we really haven't had to reach out to remote developers and go that route yet. But definitely something that we've talked about and thought about. But we try to, we work with a lot of the local colleges and stuff like that. Try to get them
nice
out of college, and kind of, back in the day, when we were, before WPF, they weren't trained in the development that we were doing. So we were training them on the job type of stuff. So we were just looking for people that we thought would be very good developers, could pick up a language that we were using at the time. With C# and XAML, most colleges don't have XAML training. So again, it's like we have to look at, well, do we think that they could learn that? And so far, with working with Billy, a lot of our developers went through his training, and a lot of in-house training, just sitting with other developers and learning, doing code reviews and just helping teach them things that we've learned and just kind of passing it on. We've been able to stay pretty current on stuff and keep developing.
I have to echo, it's a great environment there, and it's just a very wonderful family feel. I think probably the second or third time I was there, I stayed over the weekend, and so but they got into a conversation about bread pudding, which I guess is a big thing. And so I cooked Southern banana pudding and took it in, and it disappeared pretty fast. And I got 14 emails that day requesting my recipe for banana pudding.
You're gonna get requests on LinkedIn for your banana pudding recipe.
Well, I got it in a Word document. I'll send it to anybody who wants it. Maybe I'll post an article on LinkedIn with the recipe.
So Ray asked a question. He says, "What does someone need to get hired with your company?"
We're always upper management always said, beyond, if something falls in our lap, great, but we don't, we're always just open. If somebody goes to our website and fills out an application or whatever, emails us directly, we definitely go from there. We like I said, we hire a lot of people. A lot of people actually leave the area, go to school, go to Twin Cities or a bigger city and work for a while. Then they look to come back, and so then we actually pick up a lot of people, or a few of them that way. They kind of want to start raising a family, or they're just kind of done with the big city type of stuff, and they're looking for something more remote or small town, I guess. And so they just reach out, and we go from there. So we don't do a lot of advertising, job postings, that type of stuff. We've been very fortunate. People just coming to us, and we've got some great developers that way.
Okay, are we about done with the questions? I don't know how you get to people, but they certainly have a spark about them. They have talent there. So I don't know exactly what your process is, but you're able to figure out whether or not somebody's got talent. And that's kind of the most important thing.
Yeah, and we try to give them the tools and let them go with it. We don't try to, we try to, like you said, we're in meetings and design, and we try to take in everybody's ideas, and so everybody can kind of just do their own thing, not necessarily do their own thing, but come up with their own thoughts, and they're we're not just stuck in one way of doing things. We're very open to trying new things, and I think it keeps people happy and excited and willing to keep coming to work.
Not just grinding stuff out. Yeah, I think that's one of the big keys, is that the kind of people you've got wouldn't be content if they were just grinding out the same stuff all the time.
And you're more of a 9 to 5 type company where you work normal business hours?
Yeah. Actually, for the most part, but we're very flexible. With stuff. I mean, I have 3 boys, and anytime something comes up, we go to their school stuff, or we go to this and that, and we just, the 9 to 5 type of thing is our general rules, but we definitely have people that work in the evenings to make up time that they were gone in the morning for doctor's appointments, stuff like that. But typically we all, that way, when we're working together, because we do communicate a lot amongst each other, just helping each other out. So it's good to kind of all be on the same type of schedule.
So I had a question about you. I heard you say earlier before we started this meeting that you moved. This originally came over from with a COBOL-like language. You use a specific language for your business.
Yeah. So it was COBOL, and then late 90s, we moved from COBOL to Synergy language, which is a business language. And we wrote our own time. So we converted all of the code from COBOL to Synergy, and then that was they had a toolkit version, which was kind of basically like WinForms. So we had that front end for a good 10 years. We actually still have a lot of our application in that front end, but then we started moving to WPF on the front end, and late 2000s we were able to use the WPF with the toolkit stuff, but now we're just in WPF on the front end, and then we still have a lot of our off menu type of stuff that is running toolkit, just so we can release the new version and still have all the functionality of the existing application there, so we don't have to wait until a full rewrite is done. We can kind of release it in pieces.
Nice. Well, we are just about at the end of our time together. Any final questions you have, Billy?
No, I'm cool.
Oh, Nate, thank you so much for sharing how you use Microsoft technologies like WPF and Windows 10 and the tablets to create real business applications. I think that's really important. That, like Billy said earlier, is a lot of when you go to a conference, you hear talks and people aren't actually out there building the applications. They're building demos, and it's helpful to hear that this technology has been really helpful for you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. It was a great talk, and yeah, I enjoyed it.
Thank you, and we'll see you again next week on the Desktop Developer Show.